Sunrise today. I'm Chamberlain, so we're glad to have you join us today.
That wasn't the greeting I expected. But hey, anyone will do. I was actually thinking he'll say, thank God it's Friday, because it says for him, today is really thank God it's Friday. And don't ask me why we're both wearing white. It was not planned. But good morning, and yes, even though that's usually my line, I'm particularly glad that today is Friday. Welcome to your daily dose of sunshine. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
As if you both have an emergency tomorrow, you will not show up. Anyway, good morning and welcome. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Depends on where the emergency is. So, I mean, people show up in different places for emergency. I mean, you know, times have changed. So, oh yeah, I mean, whatever emergency you have, just make out time to behold this kind of scenery, these kinds of locations. You should just, when you can, you know, and guess what? I think I should take my own advice.
Indeed. Indeed. I've been looking forward to pictures, you know. Yeah, I've been looking forward to pictures.
What kind of brother do? What kind of brother do? You just have to sometimes. Just take your own advice, because it helps.
Don't worry, the day that someone would challenge me and say, Mark, how many of these places that you're showing us have you gone to? I will surprise people.
Look, if anybody wants to challenge me, just come and take me there now.
That's a challenge.
Challenge me and see if I'll not pick up the gauntlet.
That's certainly a challenge. So, well, I mean, Chamberlain has thrown that out, but this is certainly something that you should spend your time seeing this holidays. If we leave around Abuja, Niger State, Kogi State, what other states now can I remember? Nasarawa. I mean, this certainly is not far away from you. It's certainly something that you can take your family to explore this holiday season. And guess what? This site is better seen during the dry season, which is what we're in now. During the rainy season, you know, the shrubs and the overgrowth can be a bit threatening. But in the dry season, it's a lot more accessible, and you can actually explore the waterfall fully. So if you haven't been there, like very much like me, I haven't been there.
but you know, all
this certainly will be something.
All this that we're talking about, do you know, countries, they deliberately just go to places, maybe around hotels or shopping malls and sites like that, and create an area that, you know, when tourists come for shopping, you just want to go and behold what is going on there. Further attraction. And so when, I mean, the president keeps talking about Nigeria is open for business, we're open for business. He was telling the German president the other day. And then I thought, these are things that ministries of maybe culture, tourism, environment should pick up and also say, yeah, we're also open for tourists to come in.
I didn't understand what you said now. Is it that the malls are also tourist attractions in themselves?
That's why lots of people travel to go shop.
Oh yes, indeed. I mean, that I can attest to. I only recently had the opportunity to be in a shopping mall somewhere outside of this country, and what an experience it was, you know, for the family, including my kids. The mall was designed to look like Venice. So it was designed to look like Venice. You're in the mall and you think, oh, you're right in the middle of Venice, you know, with a water path coursing through the mall. And I think it's suddenly, you know,
well, yeah, we only build more,
those are the kind of ideas that we should, you know, begin to think of, especially when we're thinking of malls as a shopping experience.
Exactly.
And a place that families can go and spend the entire day. We're there the whole day and we didn't even realize just how much time had passed.
There you go.
So, yes.
It can happen.
It can happen,
it's not
but
a big deal.
This is what we're looking at right now, Chamberlain. It's good to dream, but this is what we have. If we don't have the malls yet, we have what nature has given us. And as we're saying, you know, this one can be very well explored in this season. If you're going to make your way to Abuja and you're wondering, what is there to do in Abuja? You know, it's quite interesting. Quite a number of Instagram handles I follow are beginning to curate what it is like, you know, for people who say there's nothing in your Abuja, it's just lots of buildings. They're saying, look, that narrative is changing. If you do come to the Federal Capital Territory, this is one of the sites you can make sure that you visit in this season. Ayo.
So, Ayo, come to where the flavor is.
Chamberlain, just, you don't have the mouth to talk yet. Malkwe, yes, maybe Malkwe can talk, but you, Chamberlain, you are still,
what?
You are still
Is it
a
not
tourist.
The same Abuja?
You are still a tourist in Abuja
has she
for
become
now.
an indigenous
No.
of Abuja now?
Until then, we
Because
are still
I'm
a
practicing
tourist.
what I'm preaching. That's why.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you. Well, you know one interesting thing I just found out here now about where, as far back as 2017, a Nigerian newspaper curated some things about this Gurara waterfalls that it was discovered as far back as 1745 by a farmer called Buba, traveling from Zaria to hunt animals. Well, it's been discovered for you, and so you know just what to do with it. Actually, the whole idea of these Gurara waterfalls is also for recreation, just as we are talking about now. Far back as 1925, it was converted for such a purpose. So why don't we capitalize on it? I'm glad one of the sites we visited in the course of the week, where a recreational resort, Malkwe, you mentioned that, has been built around the Ikogosi, warm springs. So I hope that someone will pick up the gauntlet, as Chamberlain said, and do that here as well. It is indeed a very beautiful sight to behold, whether you are up close or you are looking at it from afar. Most certainly a pleasure. I'm looking forward to that visit. No, I'm not, no, Malkwe, just you, Malkwe. I'm not talking about Chamberlain. He's just all work. So I'm looking for that challenge.
So you see, your mind is telling you you've accepted the invite, but your mouth is saying something else.
No,
it's understandable.
Not you,
You're sounding like a politician now.
Not you, Chamberlain, not you, Chamberlain. I know that any promise from you, I have to double
just politics. It's just politics. Okay, well, let's take you through some of the dailies this morning, guys. Have a look.
We'll begin this morning's highlights of the papers with the Blueprint newspaper. Autonomy, loot LG Treasury, go to jail, AGF tells council bosses. Ozekome cautions judges against partying with politicians. Avoid sensationalism, CGN tells media. The details on the inside pages. New Telegraph, electoral reforms, INEC to accept computer slip for accreditation on election day. Details on page 3 says, with BVAS, exclusive use of voter cards as means of identification should be reviewed. Proposes early voting for poll workers. The details you'll find on the inside pages. Daily Trust newspaper, INEC seeks legal backing for IREV. Proposes use of computer-generated slips for voter accreditation. Check the details right there. The Daily Times newspaper has NEC. Kaduna Governor Uba Sani pushes for state police as 36 states submit proposals. The Vanguard newspaper, 2026 World Cup qualification. Amounting too high for Super Eagles? It's a big question. My worst fears remain players' attitude, according to Udeze. Standard for inviting players now lowered, says Unazi. Coaches shouldn't neglect home-based players, according to Wosu. NFF encourages indiscipline in Eagles camp, as coming from Eyama. Toro Akoni want Wavon to continue. The details of that you'll find in the Vanguard newspaper today. The Guardian newspaper has more men losing prostate cancer fight to hefty costs, late detection. And all of the infographics on the inside pages are pointers. At least 49 cases of prostate cancer recorded daily. Oh gosh. Look at the front page of Daily Independent newspaper. Senate asks Wike to stop further demolitions in FCT. Moves to probe allegations of land grabbing, other petitions. Wike blows hot, says he won't be swayed by blackmail. Details you'll find continue on the inside pages of the paper today. Business Day newspaper. eFirms transparency fuels Naira demand in parallel market. Analysts say black market needs to be sanitized. Meaning of that you'll find on the inside pages of the paper today. Nigerian Tribune has LP woes worsen as another rep joins APC. That's on page 12 of the paper. Tinubu leadership crisis cited. Party heads to court, seeks to declare lawmakers' seats vacant. From 8 senators, party now has 6. Reps LP caucus demands constitution amendments to halt detection. Wants constituents to recall defectors. The details you'll find on the inside pages. This Nigeria, how degraded oil theft, illegal mining activities in Niger Delta. JTF embarks on 90-day intensified battle against criminal elements, deactivates 1,546 sites, destroys 1,424 storage facilities, 1,121 wooden boats. The details of that story you'll find on the inside pages of this Nigerian newspaper this morning. These are the papers we have for you today.
The headlines on the front pages of the dailies this morning, as varied as their names. If you take a look at what we are saying on the different dailies, I mean, it will depend on what precisely is catching your fancy. Well, I'm going to look at a paper. Well, this time around, let's call it Women Supporting Women, because the headline on the front page... The headline on the front page of Daily Independent, you know, we saw the process by which that came about yesterday on the floor of the Senate. Senate asks Wike to stop further demolitions in the Federal Capital Territory. Yesterday, the minister himself was also responding to some of these allegations that he could be involved in land grabbing. He was very upset about it and was also responding in one of the events in which he was commissioning, giving out vehicles, security vehicles to the different security agencies in the FCT. But that did not stop. While the minister was doing his, the senator representing the Federal Capital Territory, Senator Ireti Kingibe, tried to raise, not that she tried, she did raise this motion eventually on the floor of the Senate. It's unclear just what had happened. I think it did seem like she was not going to be recognized, and while she was trying to get her voice heard, you know, there was a, let's say, misunderstanding. It wasn't very, very clear. But what we saw later as a protest on her part was to walk out. She walked out from the Senate chambers yesterday, and I think a number of her colleagues went to the Senate president, approached the Senate president, and I think there was some mediation which saw her return to the chambers. She was asked to apologize. Initially, she said she wasn't going to apologize, but later on changed her mind and apologized and was able to move this motion which produced this result. You know, sometimes you have to set aside personal ego and, you know, your personal bruise and, you know, try to see how you can get the job done. And I think that in the Senate of today, a lot of women have held, you know, I remember interviewing a guest and I asked him if women have been holding the short end of the stick. He said, women are not even touching the stick at all. So I kind of think that that's basically the situation, you know, in the Senate today, considering just how few they are. About 5 women among 109 senators. In some instances, it can appear quite difficult for them to get their voices heard. Kudos to the men who tried to mediate to make sure that she was able to move this bill. It's no news that, you know, it's been very difficult for her to work with the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory. It's really such a shame, you know, that for whatever reason, you know, they have not been able to reach a truce. It's a shame on the minister's part. I don't know whether to say it's a shame on her part, because she has really tried, from what I can see. It's unclear why it has been very difficult for her to work with the minister. But this is what we see. We see it could also be political because she's of the Labour Party, and we see very clearly that the former senator representing the Federal Capital Territory has been playing a very prominent role in the commissioning that the minister has been doing. So, and in this instance, when she moved the motion, the first person to support her was another woman, Senator Natasha Akpoti. So in this particular regard, I'm sure that, of course, a lot of men had to also support before she could, you know, before this was now a motion moved by the Senate, making the front pages on the dailies this morning. It's just to highlight the background work, you know, that it takes when somebody is in the minority as a woman, minority as a political party, you know, to get your voices heard. But I think that Senator Ireti Kingibe should not give up. You know, she should be encouraged. However little it is that her efforts are, she should continue to do the work. And who knows, now this has been passed that the FCTA should hold on with demolitions while the Senate takes a look at some of the grounds upon which this, I mean, we know the latest controversial one that has now come up with Mrs. Paul Osa. And, you know, the minister saying that that is not the situation, is that they do not have the requisite papers. But there'll be questions as to, is it that, you know, people who have been given papers long ago, I mean, of course, if they are distorting what was supposed to be the original master plan, say a drainage, a road, a school, a hospital was, you know, supposed to be built where they were given land, of course, by all means. But will it be right for us to take away land if these people are willing to pay whatever dues they're supposed to pay to get back that? You know, those are the questions that will come up, and I think that the minister, thankfully, is one that has never shied away from questions, Chamberlain. So I believe that today, which coincidentally is his birthday, who knows, happy birthday to you, Honorable Minister. I believe that he will also be willing to take, you know, the opportunity to answer some of these questions whenever it is that he does his minister's talk. What do they call that conversation now? Minister's chat. He holds that frequently, at least in the FCT. So let us hope that these are things that he will not shy away from, and also, as a Senate of the country, is also willing to take a look at it.
Well, you know what is in politics. Minority will have their say, majority will have their way.
Oh, minority had their way today.
Well,
minority had their way today.
No, it remains to be seen. That's not tantamount to having your way. So if you're asking, okay, let's just hold on.
That's what they requested.
See what happens. So holding on doesn't mean it gives people the leverage to go and say, okay, I can flout the laws. No, they're two different things.
Certainly not.
So the thing is this: if people have flouted the rules and the laws, there's little or nothing. If they want to apply the law is not emotional about it. However, if they're then asking, okay, look, can there be a human face in the application of some of these laws? Yes, that can be. Because this is the same country where we are all asking that no one should be bigger than the law, no matter how highly placed or how little. So if we see certain things, of course you have to call them all out and ensure that things are done according to the law. Not that some politicians will then take an advantage because they have the levers of state and appropriate it to benefit themselves, or maybe when it comes to those kind of scenarios usually abound. But I guess we'll wait and see how all of this eventually play out. But speaking about how all of these politicians emerge, guys, INEC, I know some of you are just wondering what's again with INEC. Well, look at the front page of Daily Trust. They are talking about if they want to make some changes. Some are saying that part of that recommendation is they're suggesting that they're planning computer-generated slips for future polls. I know. So the problem with all of this is, in spite of all the changes that was made for the last elections that got a lot of people interested, what did we have?
They're seeking legal backing for IRF. Would that be the game changer?
Well, I'll wait until the time so that I don't dissipate energy. That was done the last time. So much energy, only for us to get
there was no legal backing.
What we got at the last time. Even if there was no legal backing, there were things they could have done that didn't require legal backing. Logistics doesn't require legal backing. Uploading certain things doesn't require. There are several simple things. It doesn't require legal backing. But we'll wait and see. Ayo.
This front page of the Daily Trust newspaper, at the bottom of the page is a story I consider concerning, particularly in the light of what you talked about, Maokwe demolitions, and it's also happening in Abuja. At the bottom of the page, right under that story in inverted black, our children pass through hell to access education. And that's coming from a community in Abuja. And guess which community it is? It is a community called the Kuchibui community in the Buhari area, in the Buhari Area Council of the FCT. And they have alleged negligence by the FCT administration and the Buhari Area Council government of their plight, to their plight. And I'm wondering, I just want to hope that there is someone that is aware. In fact, some of them say that those who used to pay transport to go to school can no longer afford that now as a result of higher cost of transportation. And of course, naturally, the call is on the Minister of the FCT to do something to help them. With a road, people can go to places like Kubwa or even Buari and all of that. It's right there on the front page of the paper, and the details you'll find on the inside pages. I hope someone is listening, because if we are saying that children are the future of the nation, education is the path there. So instead of those demolitions, can we convert some of them into schools? I'm just thinking. I don't know. But that's my take this morning, and that's the much of the papers we are looking at today. When we return, let's see how many of them we can chew on.
People at the grassroots have suffered long negligence, and it is enough. The government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, is here to right the wrongs of the past and put the country on a high pedestal among Committee of Nations. This is why any attempt to sabotage the effort will be confronted headlong and given deserved treatment. The local government chairmen and councillors should not forget the governors have immunity, while they don't, that is, local government officials don't. So they have to choose between dealing with the funds of the local governments as they like and risking going to jail. The choice is absolutely theirs. If they want to tamper with the funds and end up in jail, it is their choice. Or if they want to write their names in letters of gold, activities like construction or upgrading of roads, schools, hospitals, etc. must return to the local government. Life must come back to local government.
Welcome back. We're joined this morning by Professor Udenta, who is the founding National Secretary, Alliance for Democracy, and also Distinguished Fellow, Abuja School of Social and Political Thought. Good morning, Prof. Thank you for coming
It's
today.
a pleasure to be with you guys this morning.
Good to see you as well.
For having me. Yes.
Yeah, so let's delve into getting your social and political thoughts about what's going on in our polity at this point in time. So many scenarios.
So many.
We're trying to see if they could sort themselves out with a tax bill. We're looking to see how the legislature will relate to the executive next Tuesday when they come with the budget. And then we have several other scenarios that affect Nigerians. So for you, seeing how the leadership of the country seems to be steering the ship of state, how do you think we're faring?
In this very studio, several times, and several studios across town, I made a statement, almost like a prediction, that the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, wants to transcend the political state, to overcome the political class, and then deal with issues of policy directly. The moment you do it, you lose the plot in terms of governance. The tax reform base is an example. It was sent to the National Assembly, not for any robust debate, not for any contestation of ideas, but to get a quick passage. But he did it by bypassing the political establishment. So when the 19 governors in the north and the traditional authorities went and said no to those bills, and the NEC followed quickly, that's where the trouble started, as I predicted. So if you do not engage the political establishment, the political order, around which is built their own presidency, you will never succeed in governing this country the way he wants to govern. That's number one. Number two, broadly speaking, if you look at the issues, germane now in the polity, our democracy is decomposing or decaying rather rapidly. People don't witness that because they live their daily life, the daily challenges, the struggle over inflationary pressure, no money to buy fuel, difficulty in accessing drugs. These are critical issues. Budget debate to come, tax base issues. They don't see the broad spectrum of the situation the country is undergoing through. 4 elements, again in this studio, I pointed out. 1, lawfare has become a critical ingredient of governance. What is lawfare? We weaponize not only the criminal justice system, you use the vast apparatuses or resources of the judicial authority to persecute dissent. It happened with those little boys who were picked from various states and locations, kept for 3 months from the purview of the public, many dying or collapsing. Today, there's no accountability. When it was done, treasonable felon in order to put a condition of chill and fear and trepidation among the populace. Not to protest. If kids could be tried for treason or terrible felonies, do not dare protest or resist or campaign against this government. Number two, see the personal matter, you can call it, of Dele Farotimi. Let's look at lawfare. One, rendition from Lagos Ekiti. Within 24 hours, already in jail. Two, the same magistrate denied bail for a matter that is ordinary. Defamation is an ordinary matter. There's no physical injury. There's no violence, physical violence on you. Look at the one of Edo State, when the party chairman of APC talked about billions being stolen by former governor and former candidate. One had taken him to court, which is okay. Secondly, High Court with the IGP suing him, lend services quickly. Three, another judge in Abuja did what? Stop the sale of the books. An order on all the publishing houses and all the bookshops, all the outlets.
So you think this is choreographed?
Beyond that, there's another one. He's not being asked to be debarred from practices. But LPDC, Legal Protection, Disciplinary Committee. There's yet another one, number 4, 5. So this is like somebody who is not unknown. He's a broad, robust critique of the government. He's almost like an enemy of state. So if you put down Dele Farotimi, you put down the entire apparatus of resistance from that side to say, there you don't go there. Look at Unity Fountain. It is now frozen, almost gated. But Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the current president, and others exploited that particular empowered civic space. Bring back the girls. Go there to do protest. The police and the army will swoop on you. That's number one. The critical justice system is weaponized to derode democratic governance. It can move. Look at parties. The way they're crumbling, the way they're facing internal and external pressures. PDP, Labour Party. It is to create the condition for one-party state. So the president can visually walk back into, re-enter power in 2027. So the political party leaders should watch it. If you do not support and build the guardrails of democratic governance to protect democracy in this country, whether you present budget next week, whether you do your tax reform bigs, democracy will increasingly diminish. Look at the media. In this particular studio, an issue came out with Guardian, when the spokesman of the president left his busy schedules and decided to attack Guardian for promoting coup making and coup plotting. And I said, no. It is to put fear not in the Guardian, in Channels, in AIT, in Arise, everywhere, to say there are many things you have to self-censor. You cannot examine certain conditions of the state. You do not talk about poverty being weaponized against the people. You don't talk about life becoming increasingly miserable and desolate for everybody. If you do so, you may become not only an enemy of state, an enemy of democracy. In context, therefore, why we as patriots, more so with someone like me with a higher moral burden, front row in the construction of this edifice of the Fourth Republic, suffering 6 detentions in that direction, founding Secretary of Alliance for Democracy, as you put out there.
I was just about to say, is it the same AD that metamorphosed into AC, ACN, and then now APC?
AD did not metamorphose into ACN. The process of AD movement or parchments of AD going to ACN, the process of contamination. AD was an ideologically clear, civic-minded political front that fought Abacha from Nadeko time. They became a registered political party to contest the election.
So that was a platform.
Thereafter, the party self-imploded. 2-3 years after formation. So a rump of the party, not a progressive rump, which Bola Tinubu was leading, found itself reconstructed as AC. Then merged with another party to become ACN and ultimately expanded into the legacy party to form APC. So AD and ACN and APC are totally different formations. One is ideologically inclined, the other one just SPV, special purpose vehicles for the sake and purposes of power acquisition.
That's the AD?
No, not AD. The AC, the ACN,
no.
APC.
The AD, I remember, was the same platform that this current president ran to be governor of Lagos State.
Yes, sure.
That's the same AD?
Yes, it's the AD.
That imploded.
But in 1981-82, the party imploded effectively. So the rump of fate...
In 2003?
But 2003, the rump of fate that he now led into ACN was not the original ancestral foundation of the party. That made it a hell of a very, and your Debanjo them and the rest of Padesanya, Bolaige before he died and so on. So that AC and ACN to APC has no linkage in terms of ancestry, in terms of ideological and moral fiber with the original AD that we found in 1998.
What made it implode, though?
It's a process that one cannot describe in a very short conversation like this, but I can summarize it. Internal tensions between the idea of the party as a pan-national movement and the party as an insular formation with a limited range in terms of its projection. Two, that contestation of ideological direction, a party that is cast in the mode of not just seeking for power, but protecting democratic governance, civil liberties, media freedom, and so on, even when you don't get power. Or a party that must, at all costs and every condition and circumstance, seek and secure political power.
Yeah, but I mean, one would think it means then that the president today is no stranger to you.
I didn't say he's a stranger to me.
No, I'm just...
Of course, he's not a stranger to me.
Yeah.
And that is essential reason why we have a platform like this. When you speak to power, you speak to power in a manner that people we know will resonate with the greater majority of Nigerian people. Sometimes people go to power to speak privately. Sometimes what you speak may not be hard. But it's important that you use public engagement to deal with issues of public concern. Democracy is not an affair of me or you, Dento or Polity as a president. It's an affair for the totality of the Nigerian public. Its fate is not in our hands as few individuals. Its fate in the hands of millions of our people. So if I have a personal relationship or not with the president, it's not important. With regard to the head of our democracy.
Whether you are surprised that somebody who, once ran on the platform of that party, the AD, which, had a lot of things, a value system, a belief in the ideals of democracy. That somebody who ran on that platform and at least, attested to some of these things that you are now talking about, that the tenets of democracy will be eroded so fast, so decaying and decomposing. Those are the words I used.
I did mention, again, I'm happy that my conversation today was like a reflection.
Yeah.
The things I've talked about and put out in the public domain for the past 4 months are things which I'm even rehashing. I did say here there's a process of contamination. That contamination is when you, from a high moral, ideological, or intellectual perspective, have a predilection, a mindset on how to do business. But over time, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, that's an enormous amount of time. There's always a decay of thought and a contamination of the self. From the movement of AD, the moment AC and ACM became SPVs, that means there is no moral force driving it or imperative on which it is anchored. It is just how do we get power for the sake of power. You lose the historic conditioning of the earlier years when AD was ideologically formulated.
Well, what I'm
you become increasingly compromised in your search for power, and it can behave then anyhow, independent of how you behaved in the past.
So you are not surprised?
If you get APC, what is APC? Look at the cast of characters. We had the former president for 8 years. How did he run the country? What did he represent? Moral clarity, ideological solidity, philosophical depth or direction, and his team. When you combine all that to say we must seize power for the sake of power, you lose the founding element of your own historical formation. That means the AD of 98 can no longer be the APC of 2015 or 2023.
If I could take you to how you try to compartmentalize some of these challenges, to the first point, where you talked about trying to transcend and then go to deal with policies directly.
Absolutely.
So now, because sometimes it comes across in a certain way, but some of what we found out while trying to find out if engagement happened at all, to what extent, is that, I mean, the head of that committee, Taiwo Idele, we've heard him say consistently in several fora that the president did not interfere or intervene whatever they were doing. They told them, look, you're a professional group, do your job. And so it turned out that this group actually engaged and put up notices for several people and several professional groups, associations, for engagement. Even the Governors Forum, even NEC, in their minutes, if they publish the minutes of their meetings, you see, but at some point, they couldn't actually engage with him the way they ought to have.
So
So engagement to some extent.
So multiplicity of stakeholder groups woke up overnight and said, oh my God, this thing we have been persuaded to be part of that engagement process. We didn't participate. We suddenly saw them with the National Assembly. Let us now engage. That's how you do engagement. Even the military, even under Babangida, the military, SAP debate, political reform debate. Remember, the Cookie Report itself. You announce an idea. You generate the momentum for that idea. Then you constitute a team, maybe headed by the taxman, and said, take it to everybody, not a narrow, quiet, professional engagement with small groups.
Yeah, but so that's the thing. It may appear as though it's narrow, quiet, but we also need to interrogate that process of engagement and find out, was it really narrow and quiet?
I said if it was not comprehensively narrow, there would be people now shouting and screaming at the rooftop.
But these are politicians. They do these things to leverage.
No, what you have is that you have 4 bills already made as law, almost ready to be made as law.
But the issue they had was with one.
No, there are bills. 4 of them. I'm not an expert in tax laws and policies, but there are 4 there. The next thing we heard was that the 19 governors from the north and the traditional rulers they met and decided that these bills, maybe through the senators and the reps who represent them, their states in the National Assembly, said, we have these bills here. We don't think there's enough input from people. You just have to look at it again and say, what are the implications? Yeah. Then from there to neck, no longer the governors of the north alone, the governors of the south too, and the vice president sitting together and said, take these bills away. Because we don't even know the extent of the engagement. Okay, so now you're not doing engagement as putting the cart before the horse.
So let me ask you then, I mean, notwithstanding and with respect to everybody's perspective on that matter, people have a right to, of course, speak up. But if the bill was sent to the National Assembly, and then they said that it's going to be a public hearing, are we assuming that really all of the processes in the National Assembly doesn't matter? Because when bills get to them, there's a process. Are we saying that?
If you look at the structure of the National Assembly as we have today, politicians and Nigerians are no fools. A Bola Saraki, that is a Bukola Saraki National Assembly, people may have more regard and respect and said, if you do a thorough job, it will not roll over because the executive have belched or hiccuped. If you stand its ground as an independent, autonomous arm of government and said, we will deal with this on its value, on its merit. But you have a National Assembly that is a rubber stamp, completely cave in, cartoonish to the executive branch. It is clear. Even with the issue of the presidential jail, we don't even know today whether it was even appropriate. We don't even know. They don't care. I'm coming. The state president have said it. We don't care what the president sings to us. Whatever he gives to us, we pass through. People are not saying, we don't trust you.
There are so many issues.
That's your president.
I hope we can cover a lot of grounds. But when you say the rubber stamp, I know we've said...
No, the rubber stamp is worse than a rubber stamp.
Oh, dear.
It is worse than a rubber stamp. Okay, and they know it. And Nigerians know it. Incredibly, they know it to be true.
Okay, so if we're asking that we should listen to, for instance, maybe the governors or other groups that are asking, withdraw the bill. Are we not lending our voices?
Should withdraw the bill.
No, assuming people...
Say, let's debate and discuss the bill, as Otto have done earlier.
That's
if the president...
Where do we debate that?
When you have a presidency that is narcissistic in nature, if you throw in a dash of possible egocentrism, the sense of invulnerability, we can't do wrong, we can't go wrong, we must do it our way, then you find a difficulty in people's mood and strategy of engagement. When you have a presidency, I'm not saying president, presidency now is bigger in scope, but it's listening, humble, aware of the limits of his power, but the enormity of his responsibilities. Let us do this in the way it is normally done. NEC is not me and you. It's not a civic speaks engagement. NEC is government. It's headed by the VP who said, if these bills are so problematic, take them back and retool them and rework them. No, we are not taking them back. We must stay in the National Assembly and you must get past, go and talk whatever you want to talk there.
So, Prof,
that is narcissism. That is egocentrism.
Are you aware that there are people in the presidency who also push back at some of these policies and saying, look, this cannot happen this way because the people feel a certain way. Because it comes across as though presidency all together in a certain way.
Clearly, I'm not a mind reader. I'm not a voodoo artist. I'm not some sort of a shamanist. I don't know. whether anybody in the presidency is pushing back or pushing forward. What you see is what is in the public domain, what is presented to us. The internal conversations is for those people who are privy to those conversations. We see what is outside there. What is outside there is a deliberate attempt by a presidency, narrowly constituted, very narrowly constituted, very limited in scope, both in intellect and strategic dimension,
Prof,
to do incredible amount of damage to the democratic government in the country.
Prof, you're a scholar, and I know you know that what is out there in the public domain usually is not the full story. So I know.
Like I said, I'm not privy to that.
So let's go to the lawfare part, which you spoke about. Because the way it also comes across is that, look, this is happening with breakneck speed, how they all seem to be coming together. So in that regard, for the, it's deliberate.
So strategic purpose.
Is there anything that the executive arm of government can do to say, look, this is not going to look good on the entire, let's say, leadership of this country, both executive, judiciary, and legislature? Also bearing in mind that there is a principle of separation of powers. Because if judiciary keeps going like this, everybody will say, this government.
Theoretically, and many legal experts, Prosecutor Dinkalo and the rest of them, they've weighed in on this point. So I'm not even as qualified as they are. But as a student of society and politics and history, I do know when society is balanced in terms of the arms of government doing what they ought to do. The National Assembly for me today is non-existent. I want to push it further beyond being a rubber stamp. They have to watch and listen. They have to send somebody here to push back on this conversation. They have the right of reply. We founded this republic. I'm not coming from a place in which is esoteric. I paid my dues. A few of us still alive who constructed this edifice, we can't allow it to dissipate the way they are doing. The National Assembly cannot play the role as it is presently constituted. The judiciary suddenly somehow seems to have lost its direction. They may know certain things that may not be appropriate. So you don't expect anything to happen in that regard. What you find now is some level of contaminanities, some linkages and affinities between both the judicial, the executive, and legislative branch to create, if not a one-party state, a state in which multi-party democracy is comprehensively weakened. Civic spaces have shrunk to the degree in which no more guests to bring back. After all, there are many Chibok guests still not brought back, Dapchi guests not brought back, but yet the places are silent. A system in which the media is frightened, and Labour seems to have gone under because there is a robust attempt to bring a condition of trepidation, fear, and shame on the population. Ask yourself, the president himself led the charge in 2012 in the press against United and fuel subsidy. And then, of course, the bring up the 2014 was a global phenomenon. Today, those things which brought them to power criminalized before our very eyes. For lawfare specifically, the design, I may not be a lover of Trump and whatever he represents, but there was lawfare with regard to him, through impeachment, felony conviction, mock shots, and then almost 300 or 200 charges across multiplicity of courts. That's the weaponization of the justice system of a sort. To do what? Achieve the purpose of neutralizing politically. So in this our regard, it will not happen the way you speculate it will happen, because there's a purpose, a strategic end. The end is that the Delaware optimist must be silenced, not him as an individual. But what tendency represents, that brusque, raw energy of resistance and protest must be caged. So
you're saying if they succeed
succeed in destroying him, not just legally, but as a human, people will be frightened to say, look at what happened to Delaware Timmy. He's bigger than you. Dare you tread where he treaded? That's a sense of lawfare. So lawfare may not be directly in the hands of the government in this regard, because of course Baba Babalola is not government, of course establishment man anyway. But government profits out of the mess Dele has found himself in, because if he is debarred, if he's silenced, if he's jailed, there are thousands of Dele optimists in this country who are equally potent in the agitation for a better democratic society. Those must be frightened to the bone marrow. That is a sense of lawfare.
I do not want to, dismiss, and I don't think anyone can dismiss the things that you have said, especially when you cite the examples that you have cited.
Sure.
However, some people will say that, some of the conclusions that you have reached are quite hasty. the Dele Farotimi case, for instance, this book was written 5 months ago. There was absolutely no reaction from anywhere until recently when Baba Afe Babalola, raised objection with what it is that was in the book.
After 5 months.
5 months.
Nobody saw it.
Nobody saw it.
He didn't see the book.
It's the book.
It wasn't brought to his attention.
Mr. Dele
But suddenly, within 24 hours.
Just a moment. Mr. Dele Farotimi was even out there, granting interviews, and there was no, hell didn't come, didn't break loose until this particular instance where I read Babalola, said that, look, I have been defamed. And then we saw, how it has been handled. And it wasn't just that, it was that he corrupted, the allegation was that he corrupted justices of the Supreme Court. So the reputation also of the Supreme Court is also at stake here. Okay. So in this...
No, I get it too, I get it.
Yes.
Now, if in 5 months, there was not a blip, not a whimper, suddenly in 48 hours, there was extraordinary rendition, there was a hasty thing for me, I may be wrong, with the magistrate court. Within 24 hours, he was already inside jail. After 9 days, he was still put back to jail for another 10 days, not for murder charge, not for high treason, but defamation, as he talked, that's a charge. Criminal defamation, as big as it is nonsense for a public officer or a high-flying legal practitioner. If I were to be Babalola, I would take it in my stride. Look at Obaseki, what the PC chairman said. He can read these figures correctly because he's a thief. He has stolen billions. But the former governor of Edo State, yes, the candidate of the party in PDP, Idahola, has gone to court, which for me is like catalyzed and incentivized by Babalola. Yeah, but I'm coming because if you call me as the president, as the governor, I'm a thief. Excuse me, it is part of the job. If the kitchen is too hot for you, do not enter it. As a Secretary of Alliance for Democracy, leaders of the party in the country, years and decades older than me, led by my own father, but I can call his father, like Ayodeban, just sat down and called the worst press and said, you know what he said? Udenda is cash and carry. He goes to Villa to collect money to destroy AD. I didn't kill anybody. I didn't go to any court.
I don't think that you
I'm saying that you have the right to say, I protest against this defamation. I can take you to court.
Yeah.
But when you take it to magistrate court, high court, another high court, they bar him from practice, strip him of his humanity.
Has it been barred from practice?
He said that's the petition now, and they have accepted it within the 4 hours. They accepted the petition. I can even...
Do you think, just a moment, do you think that this...
And the judge, within 1 day,
Professor,
actually, you know what the judge did?
Do you think...
Granted the prayer that the book should be pulled back.
Just a moment. Do you think that this could be the judiciary fighting back? Because also don't forget that the judiciary's reputation is because this will certainly have raised a lot of interest in the book. And a lot of people
fighting back.
Do you think that's the question?
I'm saying even the term fighting back is anathema to the judiciary. No matter how well you're beaten, you don't fight back. The law is precise and clear. The jurisprudential condition of the state is very, very clear. But you don't fight back. You know what you do? When you fight back, because of the instrumentality of power you have, the vast resources at your disposal, that is lawfare.
All right. Ayo's got questions for you as well. Go ahead, please.
Well, it's in the same light, Chamberlain, actually, because it wasn't just Are Babalola that was defamed. Another lawyer, legal practitioner, has also sued the author of that book that we're talking about. And there are a number of people who have also said, look, you know what, our names are there, but let the legal luminary be the one that is at the front. And as you said, as Marquez said, Prof, it is only natural that the judiciary would want to clean its own stable using whatever instance available to them. But it's the one that feels it and knows it, Prof, don't you think? Being defamed after about 60 years or 40-something years of practicing law in the country, it is a grievous offense. It's a grievous allegation that anyone, even if it was you wouldn't want to take it lightly because you built that credibility over decades. And then one book wants to take it all away from you. It will be difficult to act ultra-biased, don't you think?
Okay, I get the point you're trying to make, but it doesn't gel in the context of this, the broad conversation about lawfare and so on. If I build a reputation for 60 years, it will take not one book, it will take about 60,000 books to put me down. Absolutely. Because my credentials, my endeavor, my patriotic services everything there have already been cast in stone. It doesn't mean I won't be angry and bitter that I'm being defamed. Yes, surely, you're human. You're not God. So what you do in that regard is to do the minimum, not the maximum. The minimum would be to have tried him in Lagos, for example, where it is just a normal civil trial, not to rendition him to Kitty, then get a magistrate to get him to jail within 24 hours, then get another high court from the IGP now, no longer. Babalola himself as Baba, to do the job, get another judge in Abuja. The moment you escalate this warfare, legal warfare, to the point in which it has become almost toxic, that is where the lawfare comes in. We even diminish your own humanity as a grandmaster of the law, to say the largeness of your heart, the compassion of your soul, which is in over 60 decades or more of practice, cannot just be hampered by this particular instance.
Isn't that in a way, Prof, trivializing what the issues are, Prof? Just 1 second. Isn't that trivializing what the issues are? Because on the one hand, as you said, it was something that occurred in Lagos, but the impact has gone global. The book is already acclaimed to be a bestseller on Amazon, and Amazon is not based in Lagos. So don't you think that the argument of jurisdiction is already traversed with the fact that the book has gone global?
I'm talking about the mindset, the psychological disposition of the person who face is defamed. If a book has gone global, your Abuja-based court decision will not stop the book being global. The book can be pirated into 1 billion copies by people across the world. Amazon and other even dark sites, not Amazon, could decide to populate it, pirate it. So you've not achieved anything. I've actually done what is called, is it the strike, or I remember the actress who went to court over a matter that was limited in scope and ended up getting the whole world to know about it. So this is a matter you handle very carefully, because once it's out there in the public domain, out there in the cyberspace, out there in the e-media world, there's no way you can control it, no matter the kind of injunctions or court decisions you get. But beyond that even, because I don't want to narrow my conversation with you on the specific conditioning of Babalola affair and that of Baro TV, is for me the broad spectrum of the way democracy is decomposing. And I thought about lawfare, I thought about civil spaces shrinking, I thought about multi-party democracy under stress and pressure. PDP, Labour Party, being pressure from outside. And the beneficiary of the pressure on the two parties is the president and the presidency and his own party. So I'm following the media. The biggest guardrail of democratic governance and protects the media. The moment this fourth estate loses its mojo in what? The moment you lose that capacity to talk and speak to power, our democracy is going to leap into totalitarianism, not just illiberalism. It is something we should be worried about. We deal with the issue of the budget next week. If you invite me, I can look at it, study it best I can. We deal with the tax issues. But you see, I didn't examine the tax issues. I'm not a tax expert. I look at the context of the production of the bill, and then the way and manner you handle is deliberate push. And the moment you transcend the political state or look at the state with contempt, politicians will bite back at you.
I already asked you a question if you're surprised that, President Bola Tinubu is leading the country, this democracy.
I said I'm not surprised because I thought about contamination. I said, if we were to have this conversation 20-odd years ago, I said I'll be surprised. 20 years later, a lot of water must have passed under the bridge.
All right, it's going to be very interesting to see how all of this play out, because it does come across as though the judiciary or the system will be making, what Mr. Farutumi's point, if, from what you say, if they go along that trajectory continuously, if they seem to quote-unquote fight back, how will one then get justice if judiciary, as it were, is fighting back?
It's a massive power.
So those are some of the issues out there for people to continue deliberating upon. But Prof, always a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you. It's
All
a
right,
pleasure
so
to have you guys.
Business Morning comes up on the hour. Don't go away.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. We do business for just about 30 minutes before we head back to the Sunrise Daily studio. I'm Ini John Mekwa. We start from the global space where oil prices edge lower on Friday as investors focus on forecasts of ample supply and stronger expectations of higher demand next year from Chinese stimulus measures, while eyeing another Federal Reserve interest rate cut, which is expected next week after that interest rate number came out 2 days ago. Look at the numbers for this morning. We see a drop in Brent this morning, lost 8 cents to $73, about what it was this time yesterday, still hovering around $73, right? The WTI is also down $69.95 a barrel. That's what WTI is. And the International Energy Agency expects non-OPEC Plus nations to boost supply by about 1.5 million barrels per day next year, driven by United States, Canada, Guyana, Brazil, and Argentina. 3 of Canada's biggest oil producers forecast higher production next year. And building on record production in the United States, Goldman Sachs expects a lower 48 shale oil production to grow by 600,000 barrels per day also next year. So it looks like 2024 is getting out of the way. For 2025, we see more forecasts at this time. Now let's look at our Naira. We saw appreciation, a bit of recovery from the loss we had the previous trading session. So we see for this morning a good recovery for NFAM, went up 0.84%. Opened at 1,545 Naira, but closed yesterday 1,532 Naira, while NAFEM also went up even more than that. So it went from 1,549 Naira 29 kobo to 1,447 Naira 45 kobo. Of course, we know it's thanks to activities at the EFM, the newly created platform by the Central Bank of Nigeria, which has seen the central bank intervene even more than before, even though economists are still asking that the central bank will make it more certain, when to expect their intervention. Tier 1 lender Access Bank PLC has signed an agreement to acquire a 100% stake in South Africa's Bidvest Bank Limited. The deal, announced by Access Holdings, is set to be completed in the second half of 2025, pending regulatory approvals. The Chief Executive Officer of Access Bank, Roosevelt Ogbonna, says that the acquisition aligns with the bank's goal of expanding across Africa and strengthening its presence in key markets like South Africa. He describes the move as part of the bank's strategy to enhance operational efficiency and solidify its role as Africa's gateway to global markets. And we see Access has been doing a lot of acquisition in these past weeks. Now we head to River State, where the Port Harcourt Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mines and Agriculture has inaugurated Dr. Chinyere Nwogu as its very first female president since it was founded in 1957. Well, it took us a long time to get here. And she's, Dr. Nwogu, saying, stressing the need for government to partner the chamber to improve economic situation in the state. Also, at her inauguration, the state governor, Similalaye Fubara, is pledging support to the activities that would create employment and ease of doing business in the state.
We as a chamber will continue to anchor on ideas that will yield economic development and prosperity, access to quality education, quality health services, adherence to the rule of law, protection of life and property. As a matter of fact, these are the fundamentals that draw in foreign direct investment and even local investments. We are ever willing to participate with governments in pursuit of our common goals and aspirations. The task of nation building is a collective assignment. So, expect us, the chamber movement, to continue to give our unsolicited inputs.
What we need here in this state is the enabling environment, the encouragement, and the support. And the state government that I represent, from what I've been mentioned here, we're doing our best. The only way we can solve the problem of criminality, reduce crime, it is only when we create jobs. Jobs will create the opportunity to engage our youth. Job will create the opportunity to create wealth.
Let's go to Niger State, where the governor, Umar Ubago, has presented a 1.558 trillion naira budget for the 2025 fiscal year to the Niger State House of Assembly. This represents a 48.32% increase compared to the appropriation of 2024. The budget is tagged Budget of Hope for Sustainability and Food Security, and the government is emphasizing that the budget will prioritize investments in agriculture and infrastructure. The total anticipated budget for 2025 is expected to be higher by almost 49%. The budget breakdown reveals 196.335 billion, that's about 13% of the budget, will be allocated for recurrent expenditure, while staggering 1.36 trillion, that's about 87% of the budget, will be dedicated to capital expenditure. And now to an area that I know concerns you. In 2022, the poultry bird population in Nigeria had hit a total of 249 million heads. That's according to Statista, and that's slightly higher than the count in the preceding year. By 2023, the value of that industry was pegged at about $4.2 billion. However, issues such as maize shortage risk further growth in that. We also have the issue of egg glut and all of that. So now let's delve into this issue, especially this is a time when if you cannot do the cattle, then you want to do the poultry for Christmas and for the New Year, for the holiday generally. Let's talk to the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of FACO West Africa. They are into poultry equipment manufacturing. His name is Mr. Femi Adelayo. Mr. Adelayo joins us right here in the studio. Mr. Adelayo, good morning. Is it too early to say compliments of the season? Should I wait till next week?
No, that's fine, Ini. Compliments of the season to you.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Yeah, good. But this is not a good time for, these guys, because a lot of them get slaughtered. But unfortunately, this year, as in other aspects or sectors of the economy, hasn't been a pleasant one. There's been increase in prices. The feed mill has been a very big one. It was the year before, but I mean, like it got even worse this year. You are in the industry. Please paint the picture for us, what's really going on, the issue of feed mill, and why we are buying eggs at such an expensive price at this time.
Ini, really, as a manufacturer, as a producer also of poultry feed, and as a supplier in the value chain of the poultry and the livestock sector in Nigeria, it's a difficult time for us and for most people in this industry. I mean, the simple picture is the raw materials, right? The raw materials. The two main important ingredients of the poultry feed is maize and soya. And for example, the price of maize and soya has gone up to about almost 200 to 250% increase over the past year. And you would imagine how expensive that is. It translates back into the feed. That makes the cost of the eggs or the cost of the chicken more expensive. There's the cost of financing, there's the cost of transportation, and a whole lot of other things. So, look, I mean, Christmas is here. Everybody wants to buy chicken or something or turkey, but at the end of it, it's going to get a bit more expensive, but we hope that, some also those who sell can be kind to the consumers and then sell at the best price possible.
Yeah, best price differ, I guess. But I think one way of solving this will be if we increase supply of the raw materials. You talked about maize. Are there ways to increase the supply, of the soya that you talked about? They're possible. I know some people import maize, but isn't it possible for us to have domestic planted and harvested and processed for feed meal?
We actually do have maize planted and processed in Nigeria. We have soya. In fact, I tell you, and I kid you not, Nigerian soya is one of the best in the world, really. Absolutely one of the best in the world. But the challenges that farmers face, including the funds, farmer header crisis, even sometimes the quality of the soil, access to fertilizer, and another important one, storage, grain storage, which is also one area that FACO West Africa plays absolutely so well. Because in the past, we've even installed some grain storage silos for the strategic grain reserve. But you need to have enough storage, you need to have production for you to have storage. Nigeria currently produces about 10 million tons of maize per year. We need to get that to about 25 million tons of maize per year because it is not enough. Human beings are competing with animals for the maize and for the soya. And normally in the competition between man and animal, the man will always win. So we need to increase our capacity. We also need, as an industry and as a people, to get alternatives into the feed production. There's a lot of research going on in Nigeria. A lot of research has gone, but there has to be a synergy, a handshake between the town and the gown. And we can't keep working in silos. We have to make sure that we have the research to make sure the feed is available, and then the eggs will be cheaper, and then the meat will be cheaper. Another important thing is automation and mechanization. Look, there are millions of Nigerians who are backyard farmers, and that is absolutely good because it is the livelihood of many farmers. But we have to get to a place where we scale up the capacity. This is an area where FACO West Africa is also very good at. We've been here for 47 years.
When you say scale up, you talk about mechanization and automation. Technology obviously is leading the pace in every facet of life at this time. But when yesterday I had a conversation that's similar to this with an executive from Olam. They are big and they keep saying, well, let's leave the mechanization to the big guys. So I ask, and I pose this to you too, because of the issue of cost. You talk about mechanization or automation. These are very capital-intensive ventures. The smaller guys cannot do it. So what's the reality? How do we get it to them? I don't think we can make it for this Christmas. Maybe by next Christmas or so, we would be able to. But what can we do at this time to bring this mechanization and automation into the mainstream of poultry production to boost our outputs?
Fantastic question, Ini. I mean, this is one area where I believe that conversations and partnerships are very important. It's an area that we're open to speak to people, to speak to government, to speak to private investors on how we can translate the mechanization. There are different levels of mechanization, right? Now, there are some farms that can have 1 million birds. There are some farms that can have 100,000 birds. There are some farms that can have 50,000 or 40,000. And same thing for the poultry, the piggery, and the cattle in the same areas where we work. It's important that everyone who hears and knows about the importance of poultry understands and finds their level. Look, you cannot continue to grow chickens in little quantities and feed the country. The large guys, the middle guys, mechanizing can reduce the cost. So that's the way to go. It requires funding. It requires poultry clusters, cattle clusters, swine clusters, area we work well in. It requires silos and grains. It requires feed mill solutions that ensure that there is availability. It requires veterinary doctors. It requires animal scientists. It requires everyone. But we can't say, look, leave it to the big guys. Because if you, for example, leave everything to the big guys, as you call them, who have the big investments and all the big money, they will come. They will do what they can do, but then at what expense? Whose expense? We're Nigerians, Ini. We're Nigerians. We absolutely have to invest and build in Nigeria. We need to change the mindset. The mindset that tells us we have to keep doing things small is absolutely unacceptable, personally, for me. So I believe that we need to look at the big picture for Nigeria. I mean, people will come in from outside the country, and it's brilliant, it's fantastic. But Nigerians have to do the work for Nigerians to leapfrog this country into where it ought to be. Absolutely, I believe that.
So it does sound like you keep talking about collaboration. Are you referring to the public, private, or you're talking about business, or, which one do you think is easily attainable at this stage? Because the reality is the government's hands are full, at this time. And it does seem that there's a whole lot of fund available in the private sector. There are a lot of people who want to increase, their investments and all of that. But getting them to buy into it seems like a difficult task.
Yeah, I think there are two things to it, really. First things first, since the government has its hands full, so the government needs to be able to create the policy and the enabling environment to ensure that...
Are they doing that? Would you say they are doing that?
I believe they're on the right track. I mean, with the creation of the Livestock Ministry, the minister is an amazing person. He's an experienced farmer. He's a humble person from what I see and hear. And I believe that he's able to translate the president's vision into the mission for the livestock industry. So I think they're on the right track. The policy needs to be right. Now, there has to be an engagement of the private sector, because quite a number of people don't understand agriculture, especially in business, as they do in other parts of it. You know, brick and mortar is fairly straightforward, but agriculture is different. It requires patient capital. It requires low interest. It requires a deeper understanding. You can't go into agriculture and expect to get the same kind of returns in the capital market, but you have to be in it for the long term, you know, because that's how we're going to feed this country. 250 million going to 400 million in 2015. 2050, it's a sector you can't lose, absolutely. But the businesses have to understand that, look, you have to invest in agriculture. Poultry, cattle, beekeeping, rabbitry, swine, the whole thing is there. But it requires understanding, it requires conversations, it requires partnerships with companies, Nigerian companies, foreign companies. It requires collaboration with groups and stakeholders to ensure that we get this done. But we can't sit in our homes and then don't put our money where our mouth is and then say, oh, the price of chicken is expensive, the price of egg is expensive. It requires investment in it, absolutely.
It sounds like there's a responsibility here, a major one for the Bank of Agriculture. But I mean, that is one bank, agency, institution, I don't know what to call them, that has been very quiet. You know, there was a talk of recapitalization for that bank, but I mean, we hardly, I've sent a lot of invitation to the managing director of the Bank of Agriculture, at least here and behind the scenes, and it doesn't seem that even the executive there are even ready to take up this responsibility.
Well, I cannot speak for the Bank of Agriculture, but it's one bank. Right?
But it's a major one that could be an instrument from the government side.
So what about the bank for livestock? Right? If you have a bank for agriculture, why can't we have a bank for livestock?
You don't think that'll be duplication?
No,
and
I absolutely don't think so. And here's why.
Can't we have a department of livestock in the Bank of Agriculture?
That's a possibility. But if you have if there's a livestock ministry, right? You need to understand, if you take it out of the ministry, right, and then you need to find out that, okay, you need exact funds for this. What the livestock sector needs, right, is different in most way, shape, or form than what the agriculture sector needs. Yes, we have the inputs from the grains from the agriculture, but what we need or what the livestock sector needs is different. But here's the point I'm actually making, Ini. There's a Bank of Agriculture that clearly needs to do more. Maybe they are doing it. Maybe the message is not getting out there. Maybe they need to come and meet you and talk to you. But there has to be other players, other financial institutions in this area as well. Getting low interest rates, getting long-term capital, getting extension workers and desk officers that actually understand agriculture. You know, there are quite a few banks that I can tell you beyond the Bank of Agriculture that have conversations like this. But then we need to know that the conversation and the action, they meet in the same place.
All right, so what do you see? I mean, Christmas is a couple of, can we just say we are going to have prices stable at the rate we have now? Is there any possibility, perhaps if new demand comes in, there's going to be higher prices for Christmas?
Well, right now, what I would tell you about the Christmas season is, well, I don't know. I mean, that's the honest answer, because the cost of things are already expensive.
Are they still going up? Oh, I thought we had gotten to at least a level where we can say it is high, but this is where it to be, at least for this festive season.
We can't say, because here's the thing. Most feed millers or most feed mills have a price for the feed currently. Now, the law of demand and supply then would mean that the seller would sell at the price. Last year, most people couldn't sell their chickens because it was too expensive. So perhaps some farmers or some merchants would find out that, okay, if we had all kinds of chickens that we couldn't sell because people couldn't buy, then perhaps we need to keep the price at a point. So I think that will be, business wisdom to keep the price at a point. But then it also means that a lot of farmers raised less chickens last year than they did this year. And that's, that's even from personal experience, because those who raised chickens for Christmas, if they didn't sell last year, they would take down the quantity this year. So, but I do hope that they will have a price cap, and that we can sell at a price that most people can afford and celebrate the Yuletide season. Yeah, I hope so too. And you did say you're happy with the ministry that's just been created, the Ministry of Livestock, even though some people have said, well, do we really need to do that? That extra expenditure running it, that comes into government coffers. But you are happy. What are you expecting, or what do you see by this time next year? Well, what I hope. Okay, not what you see or what you've heard. What I hope. Okay. What I hope. Because I've actually had the opportunity to engage in passing with them, and then also to see some of the work the Presidential Livestock Implementation Committee has worked on, which is the group that was primarily set up to create the Livestock Ministry, and some of the recommendations. And I can tell you that it is robust. Like some of the initial actions that is required is setting up the Livestock Ministry. So I believe that's the first step. The next step would be to have engagement of all stakeholders and all partners. And I believe that the ministry, if funded, not only from government, but also from the private sector if necessary, like you can fund a program, fund a project, fund an initiative, whether from the World Bank, from the FAO, and other donor partners, fund projects that are necessary. I believe that in the next 1 year, it will make a difference. Now, here's the important thing in it. There are countries like Saudi Arabia that are already asking Nigeria to produce beef for Saudi Arabia to export to Saudi Arabia. So we don't have a choice. We have to get it done. Well, I hope so, because we do have great policies, great ideas, explained and out there. Or actually, when it comes to the implementation, for us to see the benefits and meet up with those expectations and potentials, it seems far-fetched from us. So, well, I'll believe with you and hope with you that this time next year we'll have a different conversation on this. I hope so too. And we here at FACO, we're here to partner with anyone to ensure that we achieve the goals for national development and food security. We work with that too. All right, thank you so much for your time, Mr. Femi Adila. You're the Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer of FACO West Africa. Thank you, Ini. All right, so let's do a little bit of market before we head back to the Sunrise Daily team. Yesterday, the all-share index closed in the green. That's the second green trade that we did yesterday. The all-share index is getting closer to the 99,000, but it's not yet there. But this is really, really close to the 60 trillion. That'll be a green Christmas. What do they call it? Santa coming to the NGX? We hope so. And then for the activity of yesterday, it was all green, from volume to value and the deals. Yesterday, we seem to have sustained high level of deals in the market. So 8,000 plus is what we had yesterday, sustaining around that area. Looking at the sectors, let's see, only banking was down yesterday in the red, but consumer goods, industrial goods, insurance, and our darling at this time, oil and gas. Aradel back to it. O&O, these seem to be catching the attention and drawing the pockets of investors at this time. So oil and gas for a third trading session, recording impressive gains right there. Top trades yesterday, FCMB, eTransact, and HM Core. Those were the top trades
at the close of trade yesterday. So let's just hope that this momentum is sustained at the close of trade today so we can hit that 60 trillion naira and have investors smiling into the festive season. That's all we'll take at 1 p.m. I'll be back to take you around the world of business. In 55 minutes, we'll do intraday market numbers also at that time. So you don't want to miss it. Make it a date with me. I'm Ini John Mekwa, handing you back to the Sunrise Daily team.
With the establishment of state police in Nigeria. But today the council have decided to step down the discussion until the next council meeting, because we need to come up with a report from the secretariat. And after the report, there will be deliberation in the next meeting that is likely taking place in January. And many states are in agreement for the establishment of state police, considering the fact that virtually every state have their peculiarity in terms of the problem we're having of insecurity in our own states. And knowing fully that we have a lot of ungoverned space in Nigeria, and knowing fully also that we have a lot of deficit in terms of number of boots on ground, looking at the fact that a lot of security agencies, the police, the army, and other relevant security agencies have no personnel to cover all the ungoverned space.
Okay, so that is next here today on Sunrise. We've got two gentlemen, as you may have seen, joining us to at least weigh in on this subject matter. Professor Kemi Rotimi is a historian of the police and policing. He's based in Ile-Ife. He joins us virtually. We also do have Mr. Wilson Alegu, former AIG of police. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
I'm happy to be here again.
Okay, so you heard the governors there say majority of them support this. So that seems to have allayed the fears that many people have. And so when you get this perspective from governors, what goes through your mind?
Well, I think governors have always advocated, some of them, advocated for state police, that they can be chief security officers of their states and they have no control of the police force. But I think my position has been that state police is not bad altogether. But there were factors that led to the unification both of the local government and the chief authority police forces. And the question that I continue to ask, have those reasons disappeared? We are larger now, much more complex, much more diverse. When, in 1967 March, when the Supreme Leaders then called, Agui Rossi, instituted the Gobi panel, I think Nigerian population was no more than 33 or thereabout. And the challenges we have today in terms of security were not there then. But the behavior of leaders then, politicians then, became a point that if you don't belong to their party, they harass you and they do all manner of things to you. In terms of dressing, they were shabby, they were uncoordinated, and it didn't just work well with the people. And now that we are such a complex and diverse people, a lot of people traveling from one place to the other, how do you deal with the issues of exclusivity or inclusivity? If you are not from a state and they have all manner of laws, what do you do about it? How do you address the issue of maturity by politicians? Look at the recent local government elections. They were sham. They were just selection. The state INEC controlled by the governors. I don't think the elections they conducted met any standard of fairness or credibility or free and all that. So the fears, it's not that it is not good. But I think in dealing with the issues of crime, it is not only intimate knowledge of the environment is good, Those are most of the reasons that they came. You have to have intimate knowledge of the environment. You have to know the people's habit, and all those things will help you on governed spaces. But I tell you that as a police officer who have served in various places, I've been DPO in divisions in Niger State. I'm not from Niger, but I understood the place perhaps more than those people who come from there. And I had the support of the community. So we are dealing with the issues of safety of our communities. We are dealing with the issues of trust and confidence. Once you're able to address those issues, it's the issue of trust. Do I trust that this police force that will be established will meet the demands of creating safer societies?
Okay. Well, Professor Kemirotimi also joins us. Prof, good morning and good to see you again. Could you, let's get your perspective on some of the concerns that Mr. Nalego has raised that haven't been there. So, genuine concerns, but how would you respond to them?
How genuine are these genuine concerns? Nice to see Mr. Nalego. I didn't know he has run back from Sierra Leone. Welcome back home.
Thank you.
Now, what many do not know, Nigeria is not about to create state police. Nigeria is about to recreate state policing and deregulate policing so that control can be exercised, ownership and control can be exercised at multi-levels, not just this one central organization. Mr. Nalego has talked about local knowledge, but then this concerns local election and all that. How many federal elections have been free of rancor or queries? Up to now, there are still people who think that the 2023 elections are not free and fair. And then, let me say this, the worst fear that most people who worry about state police have is this thing about misuse by politicians. Any politician who owns or controls police at any level and misuses the police is a fool, because then you have to pray to die in office. If you do not die in office, what you have used the police to do against your opponents today, they could also be used to deal with you when you're out of office. Many people do not know. The police do not owe loyalty to individuals. They owe loyalty to regimes. In the third world setting, policing is more about regime stability. You see, when the British went out to govern, they had two philosophies of policing. And then one was for likes to police likes, another one for strangers to police strangers. The one about strangers policing strangers is the one that operates with the Nigeria police force. The one that was for likes to police like was the one used for native authority and local government police. Mr. Nalego happens to come from a part of northern Nigeria that did not embrace native authority policing. They saw the thing in his part of northern Nigeria, the Doma, what is today Benin Axis, as hegemony through the back door. So the fear about misuse of police will remain forever, whether it is owned only by the federal government or owned at other levels. But the current Nigerian constitution, with term limitations for the executive, is a fantastic measure against arbitrariness by the political governing elite. Because in the Nigerian context, you can only govern for 8 years at the maximum. If you are an elected governor, if you are a legislator, you may be lucky. But after 8 years as Mr. Governor, you step down. We don't have enough time now to go into this, and let me just quickly warn. The next time you invite me, if it is not going to be up to 1 hour, I will not come. But even short as this is, I will maximize the advantage. So the fear of police being misused exists now, will exist when state police are permitted at other levels. But if the focus is on crime control, there should be no problem. if any governor misuses police, the governor should die in office. Let me cite an example. Take Ogun State politics, for instance. Between 1999 and now, look at the relationship between those who have governed the state. Just look at it. We don't have enough time for me to elaborate. But in my book, the first edition of which both of interviewing me now have, the last chapter there talks about what happened in eastern Nigeria, where there was no state police in the First Republic. The Nigeria police force was the only police, who are the politicians in the eastern region. Did they not attempt to misuse them? So this argument is a non-issue.
Can we really dismiss it, Prof? Can we really? And I think your warning to us is noted.
Now, if Prof doesn't come, I'll deploy state police against you. I will invite you for 30 minutes, Prof.
Well, just to say, I'm just wondering, Prof, I mean, if what it is that you've stated about regime stability is the reason why policing in third world countries has always existed for. And right now, the reason why we are asking for state police is because of crime control and prevention. That's why the outcry is now so big. Can we really dismiss, you know, the fears around misuse and abuse when we look at what has happened with local governments and local government autonomy? I mean, when we look at what has happened with CX, for instance, some people will say that, you know, if this is what we're seeing with CX, what then would we see with, you know, state police? Can we really dismiss the fears with a wave of the hand?
Well, by my intellectual exertions of over 42 years now, I'm in a position to argue both for those who want state police and for those who do not. But this is not the time for it. We don't have the time. But nice to see you. The last time I interacted with you, you were a maiden. Now you're a mother of two, but still delectable, which is good. Now, this fear, you will not know it if you do not try it. Most Nigerians, since 1999, restructuring. Then when it comes to policing, community policing, most police officers don't even know what it is about. Community policing, when there's donor agency money to spend, then they put one man who has 2 weeks to retire from the police in charge of community policing. State, the native authority and the local government police that I studied in depth were community policing practice par excellence. Again, no time to elaborate. This fear, Maokwe, will remain forever. Whether you allow state police or not, you just conducted elections in Ondo, fairly straightforward. In Edo, you knew how much noise was made about involvement of the police. Now, the fear is just about not wanting it. But President Bola Tinubu, who is doing restructuring practically, and many do not even seem to know where the man is headed. You see this local government autonomy thing that you now get your money direct, and God bless the Attorney General, sent a note yesterday, sounded a note of warning. You connive or collude with your governor to do what is not right. Your governor has immunity. You will go to jail. Your governor will walk away. Now, by the time local governments have this autonomy, then you are kicking in gradually. We are going to be holding governments more accountable at lower levels other than the federal. So when you create state police, the healthy competition that will ensue is what is going to make the difference. If state police is finally constitutionalized today, Lagos will be ahead of the others, because the Lagos neighborhood, whatever the acronym that it has, is already there, ready. Those who have constituted Amotekun will now just convert and let nobody kid about it. There's no running away from just en masse recruiting those who are doing Amotekun now into the state police. With time, you separate the grain from the chaff. The fear will remain, but as the challenges come up, and Nigerians will be fair are much more critical now of those who govern us than before, because the avenues for complaint are wider and the scurrilousness of commentators quite frightening. So you want to try any monkey trick, you have the commentators to deal with. So the fear will remain, but that should not deter us from trying. And try, President Bola Tinubu, from my distance here, seems to be determined to do. We'll cross the bridge when we get there.
Ayo.
Well, thank you, Malkwa. You know, one of the, let me take it back to Mr. Inolegu. Now, the fears that you have expressed, they are as age-long as they come. But then the challenges of internal security are no less. And this is actually for Mr. Inolegu in the studio in Abuja. So where do we go from here? What are the alternatives? I remember how many months ago, even years ago, the community policing initiative was initiated. Till date, people are wondering what's going on. Even the states themselves have made attempts at starting up what their own version of community policing or state police, whatever you want to call it, with Amotekun in the southwest and some others in the southeast and a number of other parts of the country like that. So where do we go from here? We're helpless.
Well, first of all, the police, unlike other security organizations, is not really for regime protection. And so officers who are professional have always had problems. And that is why you find a commissioner of police in a state, he stays 2-3 months, the governor says, look, I'm not comfortable with this guy. Because the IG and the Police Service Commission, in deploying commissioners of police and other senior officers to states, the governors, to some extent, give acceptance, otherwise they don't receive support. The issue is, the practice of community policing has not really achieved what I think it should achieve. That collaborative relationship that it should exist between the public and the police, I don't think that has been properly ingrained in the mind of officers, because those should start even from recruitment and training. And that's very important, because once the community and the police come together to address issues of crime and criminality, and all bringing their input, the community bringing their own perspective, it helps in managing issues of crime and criminality in our communities. So the police is factioned, is structured in such a way that you are really not, unless you are not trained, once you have been a police officer for up to 4 or 5 years, it's difficult for somebody to tell you, do this and you not do. But the problem is, are you going to have job protection? What are those checks and balances that will be put in place that officers can carry out their work without fear of being harassed? I know the challenges that we have. The challenges of manpower is critical. Police stations that used to have up to 200 personnel, now might be have up to 60. And then out of those 60, some are used for VIP protection and other ad hoc duties. So the problem that we have, even if we go into state police and every state in the federation now say we have state police, there are underlying issues that we have not addressed. The issues of training. Go to police training institutions. Because when you are talking about state police, there must be a foundation. And do we have the right foundation in terms of training? Unless states like Lagos, Rivers, maybe Kano, Kaduna.
If you can hear me, Mr. Nolugu, those challenges aren't just going to go away because we've been talking about it since forever. There are those who have also said, look, if you're afraid that politicians are going to use them at the state level, there are the allegations that since the Second Republic, the politicians have been using the federal police for whatever interests they may serve. There has to be a middle ground. And I'm sure you have listened to our other guests to also talk about this. Do you have any reactions to some of the issues that he has raised?
Even out of studio, I mean, he is somebody that has provided a lot of guidance to me. I have a copy of his book and other publications which he has made available to me. But I am not against state police. What I am saying is, do we have? Look at the quantum of complaints. Even the judiciary is not free. From when you watch television, radio commentary, there is a lot of fear in the mind of people. How do you assuage the fears of the public? That is the challenge. Yeah, I mean, chiefdom police, I just came back from Sierra Leone. They have chiefdom police. And it works well with the National Police Force. So it is not, but if you see, unless you just want to turn a blind eye to it, the desperation. Yeah, somebody stays in power for 8 years. He doesn't want to leave. After leaving, he installs somebody against every parameter of election. And the thing never works. So the fears are real. They are there. But the issue of policing is about trust. It's about confidence building. It doesn't matter whether it's state police, it doesn't matter, it's the national.
My apologies, Mr. Enole. That trust that you mentioned is something that it seems the police has lost over time and is struggling seriously to get back. Well, let me take it back to Prof. Now, Prof, one of the accusations, well, challenges that people have had with the police generally is coming from the youth, the young population. Of course, we've been talking about the NSAS since 2020. It came to a head, actually, in 2020. It started well before, 5-6 years before that. Now, what's to say that those who are close to the corridors of power are not going to take advantage of state police apparatus because the principal that they work with has certain sentiments on their side? Do you think there is a need, do you see a need for some kind of parameters to help ensure that the system, the police, is insulated from such influences or from such manipulations against people they presume to be against them?
Thank you, Ayo. There is no absolute way of preventing misbehavior, either by the governing elite or even by the youth you have talked about. Misbehavior will always occur. Now, let me quickly mention this. When I talked about police and regime protection, it is about that aspect of the duties of the police. The police are primarily set up to prevent crime, but when crime has been committed, to detect and bring the criminal to justice and to maintain law and order. When you stretch that second bit, maintenance of law and order, whose law, whose order? It is the law and the order by the incumbent governing elite. So that's where the regime protection thing comes in. It's not an invention by me. It is what happens. But discretion is one thing police officers are encouraged or at times trained to exercise. What is going to happen when state police may have come on board as they are short? The quality of training by owners, that is states who own police will matter. Then police relations are already covered in my book. That is, in the First Republic, the NA police and local government had relationship with Nigerian police force. Not always of peace or amity, but they worked together. Where there was conflict, they resolved. Where they couldn't, those who owned them stepped in. The point is that we have to go this route before we know what the challenges will be. Thank God we're already on the verge of it. We'll get in there.
But isn't that dangerous, Prof? I remember in the First Republic, part of the issues that some people, historians believe, led to the Civil War was that the political elite were also doing all kinds of things, you know, using security apparatus and all of that. The Second Republic, the allegations still remain. But most of these things don't happen when we have unitary system of government in force. So isn't there a way to anticipate some of these issues that could occur and try as much as possible to nip them in the bud well ahead so it doesn't get to a head?
Let me tell you this, Aya. In the First Republic, where there was multi-policing arrangement, the safest part of Nigeria was northern Nigeria because of the manner of recruiting people into the NA police. The Western Nigeria thing, from 1947, when a British police officer, de Beausset, altered the arrangement and subordinated the local police to the control of the Nigeria police force. Things changed a little, but Akitola reversed the trend. Long history, we need 3 hours if you must take full advantage of what I know. Now, there is no question about it. If we do not start, we will not know. First republic that they're talking about, in any republic, those who govern will always exert themselves. And it is not always from the purest of intentions or motives. But when these things happen, when you know what happened to the local government police in Western Nigeria in 1965, you will know that when it is time for citizen revolt, nothing can prevent it. You are not yet here at channels when I gave them copies of my book. I have an updated, refined version. I can always give you, send your money for postage. I'll give you the book for free so that you read. Now, there's no problem with these things at all. People are just scared about what they barely know. First Republic, when some Nigerians talk about our founding fathers, you keep wondering, if our founding fathers were that good, why did the coup of 1960 January occur? Why? So when they talk and romanticize the past, I'm a historian, thoroughbred one. I just look and laugh because they don't know what I'm talking about. If the politicians of the First Republic were that good, pure, why did you have to challenge? In the Second Republic, same story. There are 3 Western Nigerian politicians whose cases I like to use to illustrate the point about misuse of police. Omoborewo, Odunjo, and SM Afolabi. I'll just give you the names. Snatch Chamberlain's or Marquet's copy for now and read about them.
Okay.
When we have the proper time,
we'll certainly we'll get there. But you know, something that you said, and you've repeated it quite a few times, and that will be my last question because we're out of time. And that is, you talked about regime change every time. And I'm wondering, what regime? There is no regime without the nation. So why is it easier to talk about regime change, and you're not the only one that has talked about it, as opposed to national interests? Don't they play together?
What exactly do you mean? When I talk about regime change, I say under the current constitution, an elected governor with some luck and other antics can stay in office only for 8 years. He must leave. Whether he plans a successor or the citizens are allowed to choose one, he has to leave. That's regime change. And if anything, do you think when we can pick Siminala Ifubara, did anybody think that their crisis will come as fast as it did? What is happening between Kwakwaso and his successor now? And then we can go on and on. Or between Gandhiji and Kwakwaso then. So this thing, there's something you cannot legislate for. You cannot legislate for conduct, for good conduct, and you cannot legislate for conscience. These two are sine qua non if people must enjoy the services of the police they own. But I'm saying that the awareness of the citizens in Nigeria has grown so much. And with this liberation, to quote Fagbemi, that Tinubu has brought for local government, we are in for it. Yes, state police will come, they will work well, where yours is not functioning well. When you talk about Amoteku in the southwest state, you know that you'll be talking about Ondo largely. It's as if they don't even exist in some other states. But I know they are there, but not with the panache that Akeredolu put onto the thing.
All right. Thank you very much indeed, Prof. It's a pleasure to have you back on, and we look to having more sessions with you. We'll think about that one now, Prof. It was a pleasure to have you. Well, Mr. Nalegu, could you give us your concluding thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, I think state police and all that is about mindset. And it's about public confidence, public trust. State police, federal police, but of course, there will be state police eventually, but
existing alongside federal.
Of course, alongside.
So maybe what we can then do is, do we say how should they be conducted? How should they conduct themselves when it has to do with elections?
Yeah,
as a key gray area.
Even the elections, the role of the police, for me, it does not impact
role of security agencies.
Yeah, security agencies.
We know what happens during that time.
Let me just say something before the program winds up. You see, we must all understand that.
Pardon me, my apologies. We need to wrap up.
Yeah, really, I think Prof is right. Yeah. Having only 15 minutes of discussion on such critical subject matter.
Oh, dear.
And then we can talk more.
Okay, so far 2 votes. So, but we'll see how we can get that 1 hour. No problems. We'll hear both of you, and we'll look forward to having that hour. But if we bring both of you to 1 hour, that's 30 minutes now. You now say, no, we want 1 hour, then 2 hours, and it never ends. All right, it's always a pleasure to have both of you on. Well, look at some messages coming through. Let's see if we can take them quickly. This is from Onoma Victor. He says, it's easy to criticize from the classroom, but it's clear that Tinubu is well-intended and need our support.
I don't know if we have a lot of time. This one is from Pastor Law Alpha Cross. It says Nigerians are suffering big time and the government is promising that its policies will impact upon lives positively. And unfortunately, the economy is nosediving, giving rise to frustration and many trying to survive illegitimately. He says God is not happy.
Well, too many messages to take there. Please do us a favor of going to our
I see a lot of complaint about
some of those things. My apologies, Chamberlain.
Can't hear you.
You know we're out of time. The news is up in the hour. I have less than 60 seconds for that.
Yeah.
Well, just a quick information that there's going to be a live broadcast coming up shortly. In the meantime, I have to take my leave. Thank you so much for your time. I'm Ayo. Have a beautiful weekend.
Yeah, so AEDC, there's a lot of complaint online about your services and people cannot load the tokens. So they'd like you all to look into it as quick as you can. Well, that wraps it up today on the show. We do thank you all for watching. Chamberlain as well. Yes, Mark?
Indeed, somebody's happier than usual, but thank you so much for watching.
So there's going to be a birthday lecture of the FCT minister, which we're crossing live to Port Harcourt on the hour.